On Tuesday, June 30th, Colorado is the next state and only state voting that day. Welcome to the 31st episode in our series, analyzing the 2026 congressional primary elections for all 50 U.S. states. Colorado is a state with a population just over 6 million people. This gives them 8 seats in the House of Representatives. While the governor is Democrat Jared Polis, and both their Senate seats are held by Democrats, they only have 4 of the 8 House seats available. Now, being a Democrat alone does not make a person a better representative. Their geriatric senator, 74-year-old John Hickenlooper, was elected for some reason back in 2020 and is now running for a second term. He is just one of many examples of uninspiring, spineless, do-nothing Dems in Congress. Luckily, he has a primary challenger that we'll be speaking of later in the video, along with similar good news in the 1st District. It's the remaining 7 districts that have a bleak outlook and lack public servants ready to improve our lives. In the 2nd, 6th, and 7th districts, the Democratic incumbents are running unopposed. They will still be better than the Republican fascist alternatives in November, but certainly not a candidate to spend time or money on to help them. They have no interest in helping you. They are only empty suit puppets for the robber baron oligarchy. In the 4 Republican-held districts, Democratic primary voters will have 2 options in each district, but none were able to meet the approval requirements. Either they had no campaign website, or when they did, there was nothing of substance. Vague language around policy, if policy was even mentioned. Before discussing what makes a candidate approved, and the 2 candidates who did meet the requirements, we will first discuss the primary process the candidates and voters must navigate to win. Colorado uses a standard partisan process, like in most states. The participation in the election is semi-closed. This means that unaffiliated voters may decide which partisan ballot they want to vote in on Election Day. The winning candidate is determined by a plurality vote. This means whichever candidate receives the most votes wins. There will not be a runoff election. The registration deadline is 8 days before the election. If you're watching this before June 22nd, there's still time to get that registration sorted, and you don't have to register as a Democrat if you don't want to. But even after the 22nd, it still won't be too late to vote. Colorado allows same-day registration on Election Day. The only question I am unsure of if those who wanted to switch parties before voting, if that deadline is the same, or if that had its own deadline that's already passed. Wasn't able to find that info, so let me know in the comments if you know. While this series mostly focuses on congressional races, there are no doubt other state and local level races that you'll be able to vote on. For example, one of the trusted political groups, Our Revolution, made several endorsements for Secretary of State and various state legislature seats. Another great trusted group is the Working Families Party that also has a great focus on local and state level races. This video should be a component of your political research, not the totality of it. Voting is important and it requires our participation if anything is ever going to improve. For the U.S. Congress, here's what makes the congressional candidates spotlighted in this series worth voting for. I understand why millions of Americans don't want to register or vote for Democrats. For decades, the party and a majority of their politicians have violated the people's trust. They have provided little to no vision on how to make our lives better. They've abandoned regular people in exchange for money from the corrupt oligarchy and the robber baron Epstein class. As I spotlight candidates throughout this series, good candidates will have these policies on their campaign websites. Great candidates will be discussing these policies nonstop at town halls and other in-person events with their communities. While this list is by no means complete, it is my best attempt to list out every immediate priority on one screen. Not every approved candidate is going to agree on every policy, but the more the better. Any candidate who has a decent policy page and has been endorsed by any one of the 10 trusted political groups will be an approved candidate. Occasionally, there may be reasons where I won't agree with a particular endorsement, and I'll explain on a case-by-case basis. Most times, this will happen when there are multiple progressives running in the same race. When looking for congressional candidates to support, here are some important statements and candidate actions to be vigilant of. If a candidate doesn't have a policy page or any social media presence, one of 2 things tends to be true. Best case scenario, they are terrible at campaigning and just don't know how to message. Worst case, they are being vague and hide from their constituents on purpose. They are empty suits to be funded by those in the oligarchy and protect their interests, not fight for yours. If those candidates do appear in an interview or a debate with other candidates, listen closely to the language and terms they use to discuss policies. Take healthcare as an example. Are the candidate statements vague and only suggest repairing the damage done by Trump and his administration? Or are they fighting clearly for Medicare for all, or at least some version of a single-payer health insurance program? We can't trust the phrase universal healthcare anymore. This used to describe plans like Medicare for all, but has been more recently adopted by centrists and liberals to describe their public option plans. Public option would have been fine 10 to 15 years ago, but we can't continue with these half measures that allow the for-profit healthcare system to continue to harm millions of people every year. We must demand a Medicare for all single-payer insurance program from our next members of Congress. One final thing to be aware of, and many of you already are. When candidates only speak about how they aren't Donald Trump or not a Republican, that is not a campaign message, and millions, including myself, are tired of hearing it. This and other vague, empty statements must no longer be acceptable. We cannot keep electing the same establishment corporatists and MAGA fascists and expecting our lives to improve, because it will not happen. If we are going to improve our lives, we the people need to elect better representatives who will fight to make that happen. Let's now discuss the candidates in Colorado who are doing just that. In the 1st District, there are 3 candidates running in the Democratic primary. The incumbent has done nothing to suggest they should be reelected. The only candidate running that meets the approval requirements is Melat Kiros, an inspiring candidate running on a bold, progressive platform, and was endorsed by 6 of the trusted political groups. They are Citizens Impeachment, Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, Sunrise Movement, Track APAC, and the Working Families Party. I say was only because the total of 6 is now inaccurate and has recently gone to 7. On June 2nd, the Democratic Socialists of America had announced their 3rd congressional endorsement this cycle. DSA does not give out endorsements easily. The first 2 are Chris Rabb in Pennsylvania's 3rd District, who just recently won his primary on May 19th. The other is Oliver Larkin, who is running in Florida's 23rd District, now appears to be running in the 25th, due to the state's recent map redistricting. Regardless of the map used, Oliver Larkin will be the best candidate in that district, just as Melat Kiros is the best candidate running in Colorado's 1st District. In their post, they write, DSA proudly endorses Melat Kiros for Congress. She's a PhD student, barista, and former lawyer fired from her job for defending students protesting for Palestine. Melat is calling for an arms embargo, abolishing ICE, and Medicare for all. Voters in the 1st, don't miss your opportunity to elect a real public servant to Congress. Vote for Melat Kiros on June 30th. As for all voters in Colorado, there is an inspiring candidate running to replace the spineless, do-nothing geriatric, John Hickenlooper. This is a 2-person race with a candidate to vote for. Julie Gonzales clearly states her priorities, which include the end to war profiteering and Israel's genocidal expansion, Medicare for all, renter protections and first-time homebuyer support, increasing the minimum wage, and so many other critical policies she lists on her campaign webpage. While writing the policies is important, actually being out in the community and campaigning on those ideas is far more important. We need more Democrats going on large platforms and informing the American public that there are more Democrats out there fighting for bold progressive policies. Julie Gonzales had recently joined Hassan Piker on his Twitch stream for a portion of it, and it was posted on YouTube. I'll link to that, along with her campaign website in the video description. This way you can get a better idea how she's communicating her campaign message to voters. At this time, she is endorsed by Our Revolution, Track APAC, and the Working Families Party. As we get closer to June 30th, I hope to see more of the trusted groups endorse Julie and continue to help her build the momentum her campaign needs to defeat the incumbent and breakfast cereal Hickenlooper. Voters in Colorado, you can do so much better for a senator, but that only happens if you participate, Democrats and independents, in the Democratic primary election and vote for Julie Gonzales. And there you have it, folks, the secular lefty approved candidates for Colorado. I'd like to see Colorado send these 2 amazing public servants to Congress, and I'll hope the voters will agree. But what do you think? Is there any important information I missed? And who will you be voting for? Let me know in the comments. Prior to the 30th, 3 other states will be voting on June 23rd, Maryland, New York, and Utah, which have already all been reviewed. The next block of states voting will be on August 4th. These include Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, Virginia, and Washington. I still hope to complete this series, but times for me, like many, are uncertain. I will most likely be moving soon, and I'm also currently in between jobs. That was my choice. Hated that soul-crushing job. And honestly, quitting was the only reason I got this far in the series and completed these 31 episodes. There are only 19 left, but I'm very uncertain if I will be able to continue. If any of you who watch the channel and like the work I do are able to, please consider donating to my Patreon. Link will be in the video description, and any amount to help me these next few months would be greatly appreciated, along with any shares of this video and the work on this channel. As long as I have time to make these videos, stay tuned for more primary info in those upcoming states. And as always, thank you again for listening. Take care.